Florida beaches opened and are now packed as the vice president attends a military academy's graduation in person. Signs of hope. The lowest death toll New York's had in weeks.
Hospitalization numbers are down. Good news.
Is the state coming down from its peak? The battle's still far from over as we get more deadly news from nursing homes. Just how widespread is it? A controversial new study of one American community shows the virus is up to 85 times more widespread than previously believed, as a new report says contamination at a CDC lab slowed initial testing. The risky plan for one European country. No lockdown, schools and restaurants remain open and crowded. Is Sweden's experiment working?
This is NBC Nightly News with Jose Diaz-Balart.
Good evening. We begin with breaking news. The battle to open states back up for business is playing out in communities across the country tonight. We're also seeing a different kind of gathering. This was the hours-long line at a food pantry this morning, a sign of just how much Americans are struggling. All this as the healthcare fight is still far from over. The U.S. hit a new milestone today. More than 700,000 confirmed cases of coronavirus. Our reporters are covering this story from across the country. We begin with Sam Brock in Miami.
Tonight, fresh anger rippling across the country.
I need my job. I need to work.
From coast to coast, thousands of people frustrated.
We're not going to have a vaccine for at least 18 months. We cannot shut down our state for 18 months.
About their economic survival in the face of widespread shutdowns.
Small business is the lifeblood and oxygen to America. And if that dies, we die.
This following a wave of gatherings this week in places like Michigan and Kentucky, seemingly inspired by conservative grassroots efforts online. The passionate pleas coming as states like Texas make plans to open up their economies through a multi-step approach. First permitting state parks, then retail stores with pickup options by the end of next week. As COVID-19 cases in the Lone Star State continue to rise. North Carolina, Florida, and California have approved access to some beaches. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo reacting to these scenes of crowded beaches in Duval County, Florida.
They opened the beach in Jacksonville, I think it was, or some beach in Florida, and the whole beach was filled. Yeah, because you have all this pent-up demand.
As 7 northeastern states, led by New York, continue to clamp down on regular activity without more testing. And every state on its own plan, the president ultimately approved this week. At the same time, backing protesters.
These are people expressing their views. I see where they are, and I see the way they're working. They seem to be very responsible people to me.
And going further, tweeting, "Liberate Virginia, Michigan, and Minnesota from stricter rules on social distancing."
This is just grossly irresponsible, and it is dangerously bombastic because it inspires people to do dangerous things.
Today, Vice President Pence attending a graduation ceremony at the Air Force Academy, in person, where cadets marched several feet apart.
While we don't quite look like the usual graduation at the Air Force Academy, let me tell you, this is an awesome sight.
That class, finishing a years-long journey, some without their families there to witness it.
I really wish that they could have been here. This is a huge moment. I'm the first one of my immediate family to graduate from college, so my family was really looking forward to coming, but sorry.
Yeah. And Sam joins us now from Miami. Sam, there's new information on how Americans feel about reopening the country.
Jose, the Pew Research Center just published a new study. 2/3 of Americans think states are moving too fast. 1/3 think they're not moving fast enough. As for what's going on right here in Miami-Dade County, the mayor this morning said he's seen those images from Jacksonville. He still wants to reopen beaches with tight restrictions. Jose?
Sam Brock in Miami, thank you. In New York today, the first concrete signs that the worst may be over, but also a dire warning about the group at highest risk from the virus. Here's Kathy Park.
Some much needed good news for New Yorkers.
If you look at the past 3 days, you could argue that we are past the plateau and we're starting to descend, which would be very good news.
Hospitalizations are down and emergency rooms are less crowded than before. Still, New York is adding another layer of protection, requiring everyone to wear a mask in public if social distancing isn't possible. But the daily death toll remains high. 540 lives lost, 36 in nursing homes. The outbreak ravaging these facilities at a devastating pace.
Nursing homes, by far and away, are the number one long-term, really devastating consequence of this disease.
Nationwide, the New York Times reports that a fifth of COVID deaths are linked to nursing homes, which have been criticized for underreporting cases.
There's such a lack of transparency right now that many families are basically flying blind. They don't know if there's COVID in the building. They don't know sort of the state of what's happening with their loved ones.
The virus is also stretching into prisons and detention centers like this one in Virginia. Now a new hotspot with more than 24 young people testing positive. But in emergency rooms, hopeful signs after so much despair during the peak of the crisis.
I have to say, the hospital is still full and still running at max capacity. But the emergency department is definitely a little less congested. Let's hope it stays this way.
And it's not just painful cries we hear in the hallways, but cheers of joy. Staff celebrated Elder Soriano as he left his Long Island hospital as a 500th survivor. And a team of nurses from the Cleveland Clinic received a round of applause as they joined New York Presbyterian to keep the fight going.
Kathy joins us now. Kathy, why did the governor issue the order about masks this week?
Well, Jose, he wanted to reinforce this order because it goes along with the CDC guidelines. He also wanted to make sure that people continue practicing safety in public spaces like Times Square, despite seeing improvements in the numbers. Jose?
Kathy Park in New York City, thank you. As coronavirus cases climb here in the U.S. and around the world, an alarming new report reveals there may be more, much more than we thought. Aaron McLaughlin explains.
Tonight, a controversial preliminary antibody study suggesting COVID-19 may be more widespread than previously thought. The study from Stanford University tested 3,300 people in Santa Clara County, an early virus hotspot. They estimated up to 4% of Santa Clara County has COVID-19 antibodies, proteins the body produces after infection from the virus, suggesting the number of cases could be up to 85 times higher than the official count.
We don't really know the infection fatality rate. We don't know much at all that which should be the basis of good policy. Getting this information is critically important. I hope this study is a first step in that.
Some researchers questioning the results, which have yet to be peer-reviewed.
There's a lot about this that doesn't quite sync up, and we're going to have to be very careful before we take this as gospel.
As researchers look to antibody testing to unlock the mysteries of COVID-19, new reporting from the Washington Post says initial delay from the CDC to quickly produce diagnostic test kits was caused by contamination at their central lab. NBC News has reached out to the CDC. We have yet to receive a response. The CDC did respond to the Washington Post and said it has implemented enhanced quality control to address the issue. This is states still scrambling to ramp up testing for the virus itself, calling on the federal government to help.
We need two things from the federal government. We need help on that supply chain, and we need coordination and basic partnership.
A new Harvard University analysis suggests coronavirus testing needs to triple before the United States can safely reopen.
We need to be doing at least 500,000 tests a day, though probably a lot more.
Calls for more testing capacity from Washington State, now making plans to reopen its economy. This week, modeling out of the University of Washington indicates transmission rates are down and projects the state could safely reopen as early as May 18th.
My view is that we should transition from a large social distancing strategy to a strategy of testing and robust contact tracing. When we get the number down low enough.
Aaron, Washington State is looking at antibody testing. What about other states?
That's right, Jose. The University of Washington is expected to begin its antibody testing early next week.